how many people know this, man, but I was playing through my depression. I'm like, hold on. I need to examine myself, look in the mirror, and make sure that if you need to rest, you rest. You need to take this Sunday off, you take this Sunday off.
Because the church would rather be without you for a month than to lose you altogether.
Man, look.
Welcome back to the Fight for Your City podcast, and welcome to our new home for the Fight for Your City podcast here at Gate City Studios, which is a project that I'm working on right now that I'm going to be so excited to share more with you about in the future. But our inaugural guest for today is my friend Caleb. Caleb is a worship leader here in the city of Evansville. He is doing an incredible job playing for churches, reaching new musicians, reaching ministries all over the city. Caleb, what is your story? How do you find yourself being so involved with worship ministry?
So with worship, man, I'm gonna tell you the truth. It really didn't take off, or I didn't take it serious until about maybe 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And but I grew up in church my entire life. I grew around many musicians. My brother, I got multiple brothers that play, and also have a lot of friends. And so I grew up sitting in the front pew at Bethany Apostolic Church, which is here in town. And I would sit front row, and then I go home and I get my mom's pots and pans and try to mimic what they do. And then as I was rising in the church and just growing around those people, going to rehearsals, and we call it music sheds, where all the musicians get together and they just have a jam session. And there were times where they allowed me to get on, and they would condition me to that point. So started from there and just started playing. And then once I got more involved, that's when I started getting in rotation of playing for service. So
yeah,
that's kind of the background of it, man.
That's the background I hear from so many musicians is that it was a family thing.
It is definitely a family.
And sometimes it's like you see your sibling doing it, and you're like, now I have to do it. Now we all get to do it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I'll tell you something even else that I saw when I was over in Honduras. My movement works with a foster home called Faith Home, and they do such incredible work that one of the things they do is they want to train their kids to be the future leaders and movers and shakers of their church.
Absolutely, yeah.
And how they do that is that when they bring these kids into foster home and they get of a certain age, they actually begin to train them as musicians.
Wow.
And they'll actually go through them and actually have them try and preach and lead Bible study, like in their own service.
Wow.
And it's kind of their way just to get them ready, kind of see where people's talents are, and then just get ready to move them forward,
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that kind of reminds me of you, there's a need in the church, but also there's a future need.
Yeah, you got that.
And they're relying on you and me and other young people to eventually step up and fill that need, even if it means stepping up right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell me about, man, what was the thing that made you say, this is going to be more than just I'm playing on Sundays or I'm just playing at my church, and God's wanting me to use my talents, not just for my local church, but all over the city and really just all over the world? Yeah,
man. So it goes back into, I think we spoke about this when we grabbed coffee the other morning, is where my humility came in. I got so conditioned, and I wanted to take over. I wanted to just have fun. We call it chops as drummers. You get to do your thing. If a fast song's coming on, you can move around. And so something about that, man, is where I grew up, and I always thought it was about me. And if I didn't like the song, I wasn't going to play it fully. I didn't understand. Worship to me at that time was really just me playing drums and me being acknowledged for it. But I didn't show it that way. But that was something that was, I like to say, inside of me. And so anything that's inside is going to come out eventually, right?
Yeah.
And so at that time, I remember our church threw a talent show. And there was a keyboard player. He was playing a regular, foot stomping song. And I felt like I did horrible. And so from that point, after I got off the drums, I rushed outside, and I was outside the front of the church crying. I was heartbroken because I thought I did a horrible job, and that's where the reflection comes up that it's not just me, but at that time I was outside, and my mom come out there, and she's telling me she's being a mother. I was a youngin'. I'll probably say at least 12, 13 years old. And I went outside and I was just crying. And then from that point I stopped playing drums because I was just like, all right, if I'm gonna fail at this, then I don't want to do it no more.
Oh wow.
Absolutely. So not many people know that story. And so at that, it probably took a good 3 or 4 years. And then I got to playing again, but the same issue happened. But this time, God didn't allow me to stop. I was playing for somebody at church, and there was times where I didn't know the song. I didn't know the beat. I was tinkling around trying to find a beat. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on. And so that person kept on asking me. I'm like, man, why is he asking me to keep on playing if I'm this horrible? And it just showed me that you're more than a gift. It's what God has placed in you. All you have to do is put faith in it and believe. And so from that point, I put the work in, got to practicing, and the next thing you know, the same person where I was messing up on Sunday service was the same person that came and messaged me to ask me to play for his gospel song. Man. So, like to record drums for the same person where I thought I was failing. Yeah. Because he looked past it. He's seen the heart in me that God has placed in me, right? He's seen the anointing on me, man. And from that point, everything just took off, and I'm thankful for that. But it showed me that there's more than just drumming. It's more than just showing up and doing things. At the end of the day, I was treating service as autopilot. You know what I mean? I was not being intentional with worship.
Going through the motions.
Literally just showing up, playing my drums. And if I love the song, I'm going to do what I need to do. But that humility, God didn't allow it to take over my life. He just showed me that it's more than just this. And so once I learned to honor God through my gift, I like to call it where I have a conversation with God, on the things that I can't speak about or I have a hard time bringing up. Not many people know this, man, but I was playing through my depression. Yeah. I was just showing up and people didn't realize it, but I was sitting inside a drum cage or behind the drums, and people didn't know I was broken. People didn't know that I was going through mental issues. But at the end of the day, I looked at that as like a conversation with God. And from that point, that's when I knew that this gift is more than just me playing drums. This is me honoring God and giving it back to him on what he placed in me. Because there's kids that come up to me and they're like, they're like, oh, you're real cool and this and that. I love telling them that, like, man, it's not me. It's literally God working through me. Yeah. And so those kids were inspired. I give them drumsticks out of my bag. I don't care if it's down to just 2 pairs. I'm giving them that because it shows that it's not me, man. It's at the end of the day, I want to make sure that everybody understands that God is really a gifter.
And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to, past musicians. I can relate to it as someone who has not been given really the gift of music a whole lot, but given the gift of preaching and teaching. And man, I'll tell you, there's so many times where I went through that same thing, where I'm preaching to a church that I have so much frustration with. Yeah, man. I'm preaching to people who maybe someone just came up and argued with me, 5 minutes before service started, and I'm having to go through the worship and the preaching with that on me. And I think it's something even volunteers go through. I've known people who are going and teaching Bible study, preaching a sermon, their marriage is falling apart at home. Yeah. I know people who are, serving in this capacity, whatever it is, church, children's ministry, serving food, whatever. But you go back home and everything is falling apart. Yeah. They're giving even though they just got their last paycheck from work. So they're literally tithing on that last paycheck they got. Yes, sir. Yeah. And so what is it that you think helped you through those times where you can continue to share your gift through those seasons of depression, anxiety, and just trauma that life brings?
Yeah, man. I'm going to tell you the truth. I just wanted more of God. I really did. I truly did. And I still do. At the end of the day, something that I actually read and went over with my cousin yesterday is how Jude presents himself as a servant to Christ. Oh, okay. I read the book yesterday. And so it's like, I just want to serve, at the end of the day. When God fully, when I was going through depression and not many people knew that, I was going to the river, and some people know my story, I was suicidal. So people didn't know that. I was still showing up to rehearsals and doing what I need to do and playing drums. And I think the biggest word, especially for musicians, is rest. They spend so much time.
We're gonna get into that some more, man.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna get into
yes, sir. And that's a huge thing I played. It's where I was like, you know what? Let me take these couple Sundays off. Wow. Yeah. Let me. It's okay to do so because I was so caught up in just doing it because I'm keeping myself busy. Many people that know me, they know that I always say that if you're stressed or anxiety, some people don't realize it until it reaches full max.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to catch it when it starts. And so when I start seeing myself get out of routine, I start seeing myself become more busy. I'm like, hold on. I need to examine myself. Look in the mirror and make sure that if you need to rest, you rest. You need to take this Sunday off, you take this Sunday off. But still show up to church, and it's okay to be poured into, because I feel like musicians spend so much time pouring into others.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important that you also have that time where you're poured into as well, because how you going to expect to pour into something and your cup is empty? And so from that point, man, that's what helped me out. And I spent a lot of time resting, and that was resting in God. So
yeah, we as pastors have this thing called a sabbatical. I don't know if you ever heard of
yes,
it.
sir. Yes, sir.
And it's basically this thing of, it's supposed to be when you serve about 10 years in the ministry, especially like maybe at a lead capacity.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've gone through like the church maybe has gone through incredible change. Usually it's coming off of like a time of like extreme growth.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to take that time to just say like, okay, I got to reflect.
Absolutely.
And big thing, I got to find rest.
Yeah.
I got to find rest in God in this time.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to talk to you about is that one of the things I've experienced in ministry, I know a lot of pastors that are experiencing it, a lot of, especially small churches that deal with it, and not just small churches, but church plants, brand new churches who are just now planning. Maybe they got 12 people in a garage somewhere, and they're just trying to get this thing moving, and they feel God is calling them to have, music in their church. Music's so key to like church history and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Here's going to be I think it might be one of the hardest questions of the day. What do you recommend for you have a pastor who's either trying to reignite a small church, planning a church, they have no music ministry, let's assume they don't have any connections to people who are in music. What do you think they should do to get connected with their first person to begin to build that ministry team?
Man, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I think that comes from your community. Community's huge, right? So at the end of the day, a church that has no musicians go and have a revival with another church that got rotating musicians. Y'all gonna obviously have a good conversation. Y'all gonna talk behind the scenes, after service, everybody's catching up. I think it's all about the people that you're connected to is important.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to use your resources, because I think some people may have that pride and may feel embarrassed because they don't. You got to think about it, man. Something that's really huge now, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. Let me say this. As a musician now, I'm learning keys, right? I'm learning to play that. But as a drummer, my favorite part of worship is when the music stops and you allow God's people to just sing the song to Him.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you don't depend on just the musicians. The musicians are they're part of the train that's moving. So at the end of the day, you got to learn to really just go forward and allow God to put faith that He's going to place somebody inside the church for you for that reason. But I say the main thing is community. Get connected, touch bases, just kind of like what you're doing now. I'm a musician. I know so many musicians, man, and it's that I still look up to, and their resources. I'm like, hey, like if you got some spare time, can you spend some time at this church on Sunday? Can you do that for me? Or if you're not in rotation for Sunday, can you go here and play? We'll both go together. Because you never know what God is going to do to their heart when they walk through the doors, because they see that God is still going to move with music or not.
Yeah. One thing I think that you touched on, on Fight for Your City, we're always talking about the practical side of ministry, giving specific next steps and what people can do. What are some of those places where we can begin to build in community with local musicians? What are some of those areas that a pastor who just planted a church, new city, he's not familiar with, where can we point him and say, hey, go here and go build a community with people?
Man, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I think social media plays a huge marketing.
Wow. Yeah.
I think social media is very important, just because, as you can see, there's, you can probably see it on my page, there's videos of me playing drums and this and that. Don't be afraid to reach out. I'm a person of where, like, if I can help you that Sunday, I'm gonna look into it. And then now I'm using my resources. So when that person goes to your church, boom, he becomes your resource. And then it just keeps adding on from that point, you know? So I'll say social media plays a huge part. It's not just a specific area because there's musicians all over, right?
Yeah.
I just think it's all about who you connected to as the source. So.
Yeah. Throw it to another side of the coin, if you will. Say you go to a church and maybe you're consulting them or just working with them. What are some of the ways that a church who has a lot of musicians can, maybe they want to reassess who's on their team, maybe they just have a lot of people who are trying out wanting to be on their team. How do you decide who gets to have, let's just say, the starting position on the stage as the guitar player, the keyboard player, whoever? How does one decide who is going to be the consistent mainstay, the starter on stage, and who's going to be the person who's kind of the understudy?
The understudy. Wow. To tell you the truth, I think it goes from knowing your musicians, knowing your people. At the end of the day, I'm going to put somebody in place that knows the church, you know, that knows the routine of how things are done. But I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket, you know. I would probably send somebody that I know that can help get things going, you know, at the other church, and put somebody as an understudy with the mixture of the people that's been there for a while, the people that knows the routine and know the things of the church. And allow them to grow that way and send us people there, because now it's like you don't only want to look at church as just a building. You're right. This can be an outreach ministry. You're taking your gift to some place that's in help and need, and you never know how God is going to move on their behalf, but also through your obedience.
Yeah. So what about a church, let's just say like it's 1,000 people. I mean, it's just got backup on backup on backup.
Yeah.
You know, and let's even throw this situation out. Let's say you're at a church that has this established worship ministry, and you just had a guy pull up who is a 10 times better guitar player than the guy that you have right now. And also, he's just equally as strong in the faith. Maybe he just came from a church that, you know, fell apart. Maybe he moved cities, you know, whatever the situation is. What would you then say if you were in the position of a worship leader or the worship minister? What do you say to both of those guys, to who's gonna have the more consistent place on stage and who might become like more of, you know, not demeaning in any way because it's all equally service, but more of the backup role?
To be honest, I wouldn't really just look at them for their gift. You know, if you're coming from I think the main question is, what brings you here? You know, what's your purpose? Because at the end of the day, I know that you're amazing. You're on tour doing all this other stuff, but your soul is broken. You're going through something, right? And so I don't want to only put you in place of a responsibility where you're trying to regroup yourself and then you just crash.
Yeah.
We don't want to ever, I think something about me being a musician, I have changed churches from my home church and then to another church, which is Rhythm. Love them guys, by the way.
Shout out Rhythm
Church.
When's that school coming, guys?
Hey, look, Pastor Caleb, that's my guy, man.
Yeah. Did you know my wife worked with Caleb for a little bit?
Really?
Yeah, man. She did her student teaching at when he was, I think he was a principal there.
Yeah. No, a teacher. He's a teacher.
He was a teacher there.
Yeah, I think I'm a coach too. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's my guy.
We love Caleb. He gets fired up for the Lord, man.
But that shows the true passion and the true heart.
Oh yeah.
So when at that time, when I started attending their church, because I was working night shift and they had a 5 o'clock service, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just go and show up to the 5 o'clock. And I didn't present myself as the drummer. I want to go in and I want to be fed first. You know, I want to make sure that if I'm a serve here, that I have an assignment here. And so at the end of the day, that's where I was sending back. You know, people didn't know I was a drummer. I was just showing up, trying to hear the word of God and trying to worship, because I came from playing drums consistently on Sunday. So to have this moment where you can breathe, you rest. Remember we was talking about earlier. This is your moment where you can rest and reset. Now, once they're like, oh, hey, make an announcement or something like that. Hey, we're now looking for more musicians, drummers, guitarists, singers. Stay after church if you look so. And that's when I have like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and make the leap and do so. And I, of course, did my audition, played for them. And then years later, I became the main drummer there. See how that transition happens?
Yeah.
And it's not, and that, because I think at the end of the day, you don't want somebody else's spirit to be broken because you bring in a new musician and they now take your spot.
Because it now feels replaceable.
Exactly.
I'm just a cog in the machine.
You know what I mean? And that right there can draw people away from God, because it's like, oh, the church is just going to abuse me again. I heard about church hurt. I hear about it a lot.
Yeah.
I see it on my timeline a lot. And like I said, I'm friends with many musicians. So many people that left the church because of church hurt, how they was treated and how everybody looks at them.
Yeah.
Oh, just show up and play and you're good. Okay, but this guy goes home and he barely have food in his fridge. Or this guy goes home and, he's signing divorce papers. This guy goes home and he's fighting depression.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the thing too, is when we use people for their talent instead of seeing like, okay, this is still a person in the church who needs love, who needs guidance, who needs to be growing, or else they're actually just a musician and not a worship leader. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the big difference, because there's a big debate that happens in the church world about, should we allow non-Christians to play in the band? That's a huge debate that goes on. I even heard a pastor say this. He once said, if we didn't allow non-Christians to play in a band, I would have no band.
And I think that's a good example, because at the end of the day, you're expecting somebody to be perfect.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Not knowing that
no preacher's perfect.
Man, look, like I mentioned earlier, when I was playing drums through my depression, me playing through my depression was my intimate moment with the Lord, right? So if you tell a person like, hey, you need to go and fix yourself and do this before you can do that. No. It's okay to play drums, but let's also get you where you need to be. Yeah. Let's not like hold you in a box and say you can't come out yet. Like, no, at some point you got to learn to trust that the bird can leave the nest. Right. And that's how I look at musicians, man. Don't expect to be perfect. You're broken. Cool. Still show up. Yeah. You never know how God is going to move on your behalf, because obedience plays the biggest part.
And then also remember, when it's in your best interest also to step away, and in the best interest of the church, because the church would rather be without you for a month than to lose you altogether.
Man, look, my pastor now, Bishop G.W. Frazier, always says that your soul comes first. He cares a lot about your soul. He don't care about the gift. He don't, he's honoring it. Don't get me wrong, he's honoring the gift, but at the end of the day, he sees past that and knows that it's much deeper than this.
The gift comes secondary. The gift comes secondary to the person.
Shout out to my pastor.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've known a lot of pastors, who they don't see past the gift. Yeah, they really look to it as, what can you give the church? Absolutely. Like, I know pastors that they wouldn't even like look at you as like a member of the church or as someone of importance that they should talk to, unless you had something to give, whether it be a tithe, whether it be a music gift, maybe just youth or whatever. Like they just wanted you, not because Jesus wants you, but because of the gifts that Jesus gave you. Absolutely. Does that make sense? Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And it's brutal and it's so wrong. But now, let me have this tough conversation with you, because it's something that I had to face in ministry too. Yeah. Let's say you have someone who they are a passionate person about music. They're passionate about the church. They've been loyal to the church through all of its seasons, right? They were loyal to it when it was big. They were loyal to it now that maybe it's small and not doing as well. But what happens when talent does not come with the passion? Wow. Whether it's something like they want to be a drummer, but they have no sense of rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of churches I go and visit, they ain't got no rhythm, Caleb.
Yeah.
They ain't got no rhythm. But then I've also known people who they've been singing on stage for years, and they're not good singers. They sang because no one else sang, but now they're not willing to step down now when there's people who can sing. Wow. And I've had people get mad at me because, you know, in the mixing, their mic gets turned down a little bit less than somebody else's, and it's for the proper mix. But what do you tell that person if there's a person in church, they've served loyally for years, they're passionate, but simply they don't have the natural gift? What does that conversation look like in a way that is honoring to them, honoring to their service to the church, honoring to God, but also still continuing to lead with a spirit of excellence?
Yeah. Wow, that's a really good question. Something that I can easily say from that point is it's not about the conversation. It's about the action. You know what I mean?
Action over words.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, it's like, all right, hey, this Sunday, we're going to switch things up. Hey, this Sunday, we got this person lead in and this and that, and then we'll alternate. And so at the end of the day, it's all about, is God being honored through what this person doing? This person can have an amazing voice, right?
Yeah.
This person can sing the roof off, but the person that can barely hold notes and sing, God is moving. God is still pushing. God is still going to be God.
Yeah.
This person, it's just a show.
And well, sometimes even like I know people who we've even talked about putting on stage and being a part of the ministry team, and maybe they don't even have like what's known to be like the best traditional singing voice, right? But man, they have a presence of worship about them.
That's what it's all about.
Like they bring, like, you can see that the presence of God is upon them, and people feel it. Yeah. And I think that's like can be just as important sometimes than just someone who can sing very good and has the talent. Is that there's got to be that kind of matching, but also I think too that there is a time when you maybe have to identify that, okay, this isn't where my gifts are, and have the humility to kind of know that, or have the humility to say like I can improve. Yeah. How can I improve? Or how the best thing we all have to do when we serve in any capacity in church, on platform, off of platform, singing, preaching, watching kids, being a trustee, serving as an elder, whatever, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that I have to do that is best for the kingdom of God?
Absolutely.
Is it that I'm not in leadership? Yeah. Is it that I start serving someone else? Is it that I start propping someone else up? Like, I think those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. And that's the very thing that keeps churches stuck. Yeah. Is that there's someone or a group of people who's making it all about them and not willing to humble themselves before the Lord.
And the Bible speaks about humbleness almost through the whole book, right? But at the end of the day, I think something that's really hurting the church now when it comes to stuff like that is pride. Yeah. Pride is huge. Yeah. Pride is very, and I think it's because your pride comes because people look at worship just being on stage and you're now holding a title as a musician or the lead worshiper or the main singer for this song. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so at the end of the day, you have now replaced what is meant for God for yourself. And that even happened at churches back in the day who had like the traditional choir and at choir practice. You know, who's the choir leader? Yeah. Who gets to, like you say, who gets to take lead on this hymn? So let me tell you this though. I've been a part of it. I've actually witnessed it because I used to go to rehearsals. There was people up there still in the choir that couldn't sing, but because they had the heart of God and they loved to worship, they were still part of the choir. Yeah. So I think about still having that person a part of it shows that it's all about God. It's not about you. Just like, for instance, like for me, when I couldn't play those songs, my brother would have to step in and play those songs for me. And like I said, I was feeling crushed, but then again, I'm like, all right, I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to pick it up. Because I think it ain't like he's showing that he's a better drummer. He's telling me like, yo, this is what the beat, like while the song is going, he's looking over to me. It's like, this is how the beat goes, this and that. And he's telling me. So now next time I approach this song, I approach it how he taught me. And so to be able to put that humility and really just learn to listen and to adapt, because obviously with the musician it comes with, you have to put in work for the gift.
Yeah.
It ain't just like here, you know, like for Christmas, there's a wrapped present, you got the gift, you have to put in action to open it. Right? You have to put in action to cut the ties, like the whatever, zip ties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You have to learn to cut that. You just don't hold it.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, that's put into action of like, all right, I gotta, you know, put in the work for it.
And I think there's a lot to say, like when it comes to musicians too, because this relates to music as well as it relates to preachers, and that there's people who they're talented or think that they're talented enough that they convince themselves, I don't have to prepare. I don't gotta practice. I can just I can just come up, open the Bible, and I can deliver a great message. The even worse mentality sometimes is I can get by with a good enough message.
Absolutely.
Good enough that they don't want to fire me. Good enough that they give me my paycheck at the end, which I don't think is people's mentality, but unfortunately it's how people do. And I think that can exist sometimes in music. It's good enough.
Yeah, it's good enough. And that's like not listening to your music and, you know, putting things to the side. And even because there was times where I didn't even have a drum set at home and I couldn't get inside the church. So like I would literally just listen to the song constantly to a point where once Sunday comes up, it's annoying, but I'm playing it now. You know, it's annoying. I want it to bug everything out of me. And now I'm drumming. I didn't even know that like I paid attention to the song because I didn't have a drum set. So it's all about like, I think your mental plays a huge part in it as well.
Yeah. I think the big message to come out of that is, are you coming from a place wanting to serve, or are you coming from a place of just wanting attention?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference. That's what makes it different from a person who prepares, doesn't prepare, a person who comes there to serve, rather apart from a person who's just there so that they're on stage playing in front of a big group of people, you know. Yeah. But, you know, earlier you mentioned the book of Jude, and this was really bad of me. I can't remember the specific verse, but one thing that the book of Jude talks about is he talks about the word that we use is charlatans, people who, you know, they don't practice what they preach, they don't believe what they're saying. Yeah. And I think that can apply to musicians too. Absolutely. There's musicians that are playing just because it's people who want to hear them play. It's people, they're playing because there's a paycheck there at the end of it. And that, like we said, that's a musician, not a worship leader. You're not leading worship because you're not worshiping. Yeah. To me, you can't lead worship if you aren't worshiping.
Absolutely.
You know, do you know what Jude calls these people, these charlatans, the analogy that he uses? What? He says that they are clouds without water. Yeah. They appear that they're going to be a blessing. Yeah. But nothing comes out of it. Man. Yeah. And this will be the most controversial thing I say today. Musicians are some of the best and worst people that I've ever known. Absolutely, yeah. There are some of them that are my family, they're my friends. I love them. I want to hang out with them until the point where they don't want me anymore. Yeah. And not like you at the end of this interview, but there's some I've known where the pride and the arrogance, like it's a pain to go through. Yeah. You know, practice together. I think that's why some bands don't practice together, don't want to practice, is because they know it's going to be drama. They know it's going to be a fight and a dog fight to get through. So, you know, talk to us. What would you tell pastors to encourage them to look at the character even more than they look at the talent when looking at who's leading their worship ministry? Absolutely.
Well, I think that comes from basically the book of John, right? Where you worship in spirit and truth. You know, so at the end of the day, it says the key word is and, A-N-D, and. It's not saying or, it's saying spirit and truth, accent both of them. Needs to be present, right? And I think it's something where, like, even now, with church musicians and preachers, there's a lot of trust. I'm trusting you to lead. I'm trusting you to prepare the song. I'm trusting you because ain't like pastors is telling people, hey, do this song this week. Hey, do this song. Unless, you know, if they specifically ask for a reason. Yeah. But other than that, they are trusting their worship leaders to really like, hey, I'm putting faith in you that you can lead these people to God. Yeah. You're presenting because I think if the worship is strong and things are moving, it now allows the preacher to come and feed off that and push on. He don't have to put on so much armor that he's got a full force to get people connected. They're already moving. Things are already stirring up.
And we live in a day and age where there's so much fakeness. Especially people our age, we're around fake people all the time. We get pushed fake stuff. Yeah. We have influencers faking stuff to us. We're getting these TikTok ads all the time for products that probably don't work. Yeah. We're getting ripped off on Temu. It's hard out there.
I don't even do Temu.
I don't do Temu either. I can't get it. Not because I think they're going to hack me. I just don't know how to work it.
I'm just not about to get, I'm not about that.
I don't even know.
I'm really just.
These are two different reasons. We have a man who says, I value my privacy, and a man who says, I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But, one of the things I think is there's a generation now that yearns for authenticity above talent. Mm-hmm. Like, I see so many people, they don't go to churches that have the best preachers anymore.
No.
They don't go to churches that have necessarily the best worship set. They're just looking for something real and authentic and a genuine community they can be a part of.
Man.
And that gets ripped out of you. Yeah. If you were to show up to worship early and you see the band fighting on stage over who's speeding up and who's not quick enough.
And I think that comes from remember I was telling you how there was a little kid come up to me or anybody that come up to me like, yo, like how'd you do that? And I show them, and then boom, by the time we're done with the conversation, I give them some sticks. Here, take some drumsticks. You go home, do what you need to do. Even if you throw them away, that's cool. But I want you to remember this moment that I'm not above you. Mm. I tell people all the time, I'm just a man after God's heart, like David. Yeah, I really am. And so nowadays, I come across people, even at my old job, where I'll sit face to face with people and they're telling me that they want something. They want to experience God. There's a lot of people out here that don't know God, but we do, right? So at the end of the day, I'm gonna use my gift to expand that. Let that person walk up in the church and boom. I just had a conversation with him at Snooks, because I grocery shop there, by the way. And he was very nice. I didn't know he was a musician here, this and that. There's a lot of people out here that's really wanting God. They just don't know where to start because how we present ourselves.
And if you are given a place on the platform of your church at any role, announcements, preaching, music, you become a face of the church.
You do. You really do, man.
You're a representative.
You do. You're definitely a representative.
Every church is a representative of the kingdom. Mm-hmm. Every person's a representative of their church. But you are literally a face. Mm-hmm. You are literally up there. Everyone's looking up at you. Yep. And I think there needs to be a burden that gets carried with that. Absolutely. I can't go flip people off on the Lloyd after playing drums on Sunday. I can't go preach a sermon and then be chewing out the worker at Walmart because they won't go look in the back for my popcorn.
Absolutely.
I can't do that because I am a face, a direct representative of God in an even weightier way because I'm showing my face on Sunday.
And I think that comes with everybody that attends a church, not just the musicians and people in pulpit. I think that's everybody that walks through them doors, they take a seat, and they're not involved in church. Because I like to tell people that I use church as a huddle. The game's on the line. You call a timeout, you're going to huddle your people. You're going to talk to them. You're going to get a game plan. That's how I look at church. Not obviously like sports, but this is our time to come together. This is our time to refuel ourselves and then go back out to the doors and do what we need to do from that point. So that's why I said everybody plays a part because I want to represent my church well, even though there's times where I didn't, but that's what the church is for. Yeah. Come back and regroup yourself, recharge yourself.
Correction too.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
And for correction to work, we have to have the willingness to be corrected.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Man, that's just such good stuff to take away from. Yeah. People just need to hear that.
They do, yeah.
And there needs to be that correction from the pastors, even at the risk of losing some of those great musicians. The willingness to say, hey, I'm going to hold you to a higher standard today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as the same, I think people should hold their pastors to too. We're not perfect, but God has put a heavy call on us, and we can't be prideful either. We need to make sure that we're setting that example for the church too.
That's good. Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely, bro. Well, man, let me also ask you about this. What is your take on this big argument that happens in the church today? We talk so much about pastors getting paid, X amount of dollars, corruption that goes on. That's horrible.
Yeah.
But one of the big debates that takes place, and me and you kind of come from different cultures of this, should musicians be paid in church?
I'm going to say that, because right now, I'm going to tell you the truth. There's many churches where I played for free. I just showed up because I got a full-time job, right? And I'm thankful for that. But there is musicians down here that is full-timers,
Yeah.
And so this goes into you buying your equipment, you taking you running your gas, coming into town.
I just started playing bass, and it's insane. Mm-hmm. It's insane the amount of money that can go into this.
You got that's all the stuff that you got to put into. But I say musicians should get paid, but it shouldn't define on where God places you. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and I'll say this, because I'm not against it, but I also don't care for it. I really don't, because I know that there's something greater. If I've been to churches where I got paid and God really didn't move, and that's no shame to them. God is moving there, But that Sunday he didn't do, I'm looking for the results of, why am I here? I've been to churches where I didn't get paid, and many random baptism, people giving their life to Christ, people at the altar crying. That is the stuff that I long for. Now, if I'm being blessed to say, hey, come play here, cool, I would do that. I don't mind it, but I'm not going to let that define on what God is doing in me.
Right. I think that's the biggest difference. I take it the same way preaching. I don't serve God. I don't use my talents for God just for the money.
That's huge. Huge.
Meaning I will go preach somewhere for free.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a rate.
Exactly.
I don't say, hey, it's going to be X amount of money. Because honestly, I mean, all it takes to get me there is the gas.
Yeah.
All it takes to get me there is the gas to get there.
Yeah.
Musicians, I can respect being a little bit different because,
absolutely,
especially as a drummer,
there's a lot of gear, brother.
Brother, I can't imagine you throwing that in the back of a Ford Fiesta and getting up there from a full kit.
Absolutely.
So, but I think there's that balance of, like you said, I'm going to use my talent for God. It's His talent. He gave it to me.
Think about it. And I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go.
But think about it. If you was to go to somewhere that, I'm offering you this, God is placing in your heart to go to this church because He knows that there's somebody that's needing this connection. They need the anointing that you have, a part of this movement. But you chose money, right?
Mm.
You no longer can play drums because now your wrist is broken or this and that. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right. So therefore, that's why I said I don't rely on the paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you have to be really intimate and discernment on where God is placing you. And I say that because my mom had taught me that when I was a younger kid. As I was telling you, as I was growing into playing drums and stuff, there was a lady, and she's actually the first one to ask me ever to play drums. I know that a lot of people ask me now. She was the very first one that opened up that door for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful God had placed, in her heart to be obedient and asked me for that. But she said, hey, can you come and play here for $25? $25 a week. I'm like, at that time, I'm like, yeah.
How old were you?
I was like, I want to say like 13, 14.
Oh, bro, that's all the money. That's all the money.
That's 3 McChickens at McDonald's. That's a high C, So, all for $6.
After a month, that's a PlayStation.
Hey, I'm just saying, man. But here's the thing. This is where my mom had taught me, and at the time, I didn't understand. But as I grew up, I realized what she was doing, and she told me, she was like, "No, you're not going to play there." She was like, "Don't go for the money, but go. If you're going to go and play, you're doing this for God."
Mm.
And I was like, man, I was like $25. I go to the movies on the weekend. But obviously, I didn't argue with my mama. I was just like, yes, ma'am. And so as I was, every Sunday, I was going there and I wasn't getting. I told them I don't. My mom said I can get $25. I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
Not realizing that had opened up the door for me now, where I can receive a blessing, but also not let it dictate where God is going to place me. Because I built so many connections just from basically accepting that, oh, hey, can you come play drums this Sunday and this and that, and they don't mention any pay, I'm not about to bring it up.
Yeah.
If you want to bless me, that's fine. I get that. That's, I was always taught to just receive your blessings. Don't, reject it. But God was like moving real heavy in my heart where, hey, go here. Every Sunday I get that. Let me tell you this. Musicians should pray before they get on their instrument.
Yeah.
That's something that I would like to throw in there. Pray before, because I'm a person where I come in my backpack or my snare bag and stuff.
Yeah.
Before I even walk near the drums, I'm putting that stuff down. I'm going to the altar, or I'm going right there at the pew, and I'm gonna pray, because worship is laying it down.
Yeah.
It's not just singing songs. You're actually sacrificing. You're laying something down. The sin I committed for the week, the pride, anything that you're going through. Hey, I'm stressed out, but Lord, have your way. I'm laying all this down. I'm presenting it to the Lord. So when I get on this instrument, I can release it onto you. Yeah. And that's one of the most beautiful things ever. So I would like to throw that in there. But with the pay, man, I just don't think you should let it dictate where God's placing you. Even if you go to a church that's giving you $50. You never know how God is going to expand that $50. Oh, hey, we're sending you to this church. They're going to offer you $700. Yeah. You never know how your obedience is going to be. So,
well, let me look directly into the camera and talk to my fellow pastors out there. Musicians, you've heard it from Caleb, but I'll speak to the pastors for a moment. Musicians, when it comes to the money, obviously they don't do it for the money. They do it to serve God. But I'm going to challenge you in this too. If you're hiring musicians or a band to travel and bring all of their equipment along with them, maybe your church doesn't have a soundboard, they don't have a drum kit, they don't have amps, you need them to bring all of that. You need to be aware of that. You need to be respectful of that and make sure they're taken care of. Make sure that they're putting their bodies, their equipment, their time on the line. Something could easily happen to this equipment, whatever. You need to make sure they're taken care of, obviously in a hospitable way, but also in a financial way too, to make sure it's fair to them and make sure that they're not going broke to come play for your church. I would say that. And also, if you have someone who's a great leader in your church, who is more than just a musician, but you actually see them being a minister and a pastor to your band and your people, I would say be willing to say, hey, this person's doing an incredible job. Maybe we should be making up staff because they're going far and beyond their leadership without pay. Imagine if we gave them pay to free up even more of their time, that they can work one less side hustle, they can work a few less hours of overtime. Absolutely. So they can continue to pour into the ministry.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I think something that plays a huge part in it as well, I know this became a conversation, is where what if this church doesn't make enough to pay musicians?
Oh, yeah.
And so at the end of the day, that's something you have to be okay with. But I think the most important thing, and I'm going to look directly in this camera, and I'm going to let everybody know that the most important thing is, even if it's not money, even if it's, just a simple handshake, you're acknowledging them, musicians need to be more appreciated. They sacrifice a lot.
Yeah.
There was times where like some Sundays I didn't get to spend with my kiddos because I'm leaving. I'm playing drums, that's the sacrifices that musicians make. And I think even a simple, like, hey, let me take you out to lunch. My pastor now, hey, you let me know when you're free. Let's go get some breakfast. After service, man, I love you. You're killing it there. You're doing great things, and God loves your son. And he was like, you keep on, stay encouraged. That is the type of stuff that you can hear and that's why I said, don't let money dictate where you want to be, because you never know that words can go a long way.
Absolutely.
They really can. Be encouraged. That's all you do. Somebody, I hear it on a Sunday morning, be encouraged. I just went through a terrible week, and this is what I hear. Boom, I'm good. I'm blessed. Simple stuff like that is what helps people out. And so that's why I said musicians need to be appreciated more, because there is a huge sacrifice. There is a huge responsibility, because if you think about it, people's souls they can be in your hands, right? And so that's where your responsibility comes from. Am I leading these people to Christ, or am I leading these people to a show? Mm-hmm. So musicians, y'all appreciate it. I love you guys. Absolutely.
Well, Caleb, I just want to say thank you so much for being on today, speaking into not just giving us head knowledge, not just giving us some practical steps, but man, you gave us some just great wisdom today. I appreciate it. I got to have you back on again too sometime,
Hey,
brother.
you just let me know, man. I'll be down for it. I love it.
All right, and I guess now after you ended it that way, I got to go buy you lunch sometime. So we'll make it happen. But thank you all for joining us for the Fight for Your City podcast. You can check the links down below and YouTube, and you will be able to see some of Caleb's social media and a way that you can connect him. It's going to be great, man. I'm excited about whatever next is for you, what God's doing in your life, your family's life, man.
Yes, sir.
We'll be praying for you.
Thanks, man.
Thank
yes,
you.
Sir.
God bless.
God bless.